Welcome to the Learning Can't Wait podcast, a Full Mind production. At Full Mind, our vision is to ensure every child has access to an exceptional education. Each episode, we will be joined by pathfinders within and around the education space who are bringing about transformational change on behalf of deserving students. I am your host, Haley Spierbauer. Welcome back, everybody, to the Learning Can't Wait podcast. We have a big energy, big brained, as my kids say, guest joining us here today who is doing incredible work and doing incredible thought leadership in the space of AI. I'm thrilled to introduce you all to Kunal Dalal, the Chief Parentologist at AI Parentology. Kunal, welcome.
What's up, Haley? How you doing?
I'm doing great. I am so thrilled to have you on the podcast today. I have a lot of questions that are just going to help me better understand this space better, but also I think that are going to help further the conversation that you're already having in many places and spaces.
Yeah. I'm excited to have this conversation. You're one of my favorite people in the space, so let's go.
Listen, that is a tall honor to be considered in your sphere and your orbit. And I honestly have to say that I'm finding the content and information you're putting out to be more meaningfully descriptive and more meaningfully advancing the conversation than so many other voices right now. So I'm really excited to dive in. But first, I think that it's really important people understand how you got here. So why don't you tell us all, how did you come to be the personal and professional version of yourself, Kunal?
Thank you. Great question. I think it's been a long journey for me. When I was in high school, I used to tell myself, I'm going to become a teacher when I can afford it. What a terrible thing to say, right? But that's sort of that was kind of
Wow.
I know that's kind of a crazy thing to say, but I remember like sitting in the hallway going to chemistry class being like, I'm going to be a teacher when I can afford to be a teacher. But it ended up that callings don't wait. And so by the time I was 21, I was already working with youth coming out of lockup, getting high school curriculum, and then I became a classroom teacher. And then I was like, wait, this isn't just a job. This is my calling. And in a way, this is sort of therapy for me. And so that's when I was a teacher, high school teacher, high school principal, assistant principal, all the things. I didn't actually get into the district office before I left to start a headphone company. So founded a headphone company, did some ed tech work as well. And that was sort of 20 years of my career was teaching,
Wow.
school administration, and then starting my own startup and then being in some startups. And then COVID happened, had my kids, and things sort of changed, obviously, as happens when you have kids. And having a kid right when COVID started, and pretty soon after ChatGPT becoming public, things merged all at once. And I started to see pretty quickly the power that something like generative AI could have on parents who otherwise feel isolated, lonely, feel like they're the only ones going through what they're going through. And so then I wrote my first book, The AI Parent, back in March of 2023. And that was it was basically a pamphlet, but it was just like, hey, look, this can help parenting. And I thought everyone would be so excited. And definitely it made the New York Times bestseller list. Wait, hold on. Sorry, I misread that. The New York Times worst seller list. It made the New York Times worst seller list. But how much has happened in the last few years? Now I'm actually running parent sessions at schools. I've done multiple parenting sessions at multiple conferences. I've had my stuff published. I've been in multiple publications like Forbes and Guardian and all that stuff, because people are really understanding that that AI isn't just about jobs, isn't just about work, isn't just about specific things. It's actually about life, because it's about ourselves, right?
Yeah.
And so that's how I got into it. And I continue to live in that space of AI is about ourselves, about who we are. And every bit of what AI becomes is going to be a reflection of what we want it to become. And we as parents have to be front and center in that conversation. Otherwise, it's going to be about those who have monetary stakes, not who have human stakes. And we have to have the people who have human stakes make these decisions.
Wild to think that just 2 years ago, they weren't ready for the book, but now the environment's so ripe for this conversation. So, if you could encapsulate the message you're trying to share with parents and like what they're ready to hear today, what would that be?
I think first thing is it is okay to be scared. There are a lot of parents who are so frightened and nervous and uncertain, and that's all correct. Like we all like if you're not feeling that, then I don't know that you're paying attention. Because we don't know what's good for our kids in the future. How are our kids' futures going to look like? This is real visceral stuff. We're not talking about like what is Q4 going to look like for our business. We're talking about the lives of our children, right? And so this is very, very visceral stuff. And so the first thing is it's okay to be confused. It's okay to feel behind. There is no behind because there is no ahead. And it's okay to ask questions, right? But I would also offer to parents that um, we are not going to have another opportunity to shape what this AI world is going to look like. Um, we are in a transition period right now. And like all big transformations, it happens and then it becomes really hard to undo. And so we are in a space where we are changing as a society, as a world. AI is going to be an integral part of what that means, not because of AI, but rather because we have spent 30, 40 years building an incredibly robust digital infrastructure that does a lot of work. And AI now happens to be able to port into that and do a lot of that work for us. Well, that's actually really cool for us. We did a lot of work to help get AI to help us out here. So let's use that and let's let AI do that because if we don't, and instead we let AI kind of bleed over into our personal lives, then I'm worried we're going to have social media 2.0, and this is going to be way worse than the first
Yeah.
social media.
The parallel with social media is the one that really gets me because it ran away from us. It got away from
Hmm.
us faster than we could even think about trying to stop it or get ahead of it. And, luckily my kids are too young for social media, although some of their peers have it. That's a whole nother thing for a whole nother time. But
Hmm.
I know that this kind of like getting away from us situation is very possible if we aren't attentive right now.
Hmm.
You're on the ground. You're saying you speak at conferences with parents, you're in schools with parents. They're fearful, they feel behind. What has parents excited on the flip side?
Yeah. Oh, my God, great question. I think there are a lot of parents who are seeing themselves a little bit freed from some of the tedium that they have to do every day. And so, in that sense, they have been like parents are like, one thing I've noticed is that I can now help my kids with their homework. Like I can sit with
Oh,
them.
yes.
Right? Like I can sit with them while they're doing their homework
Yes.
and I can ask ChatGPT some questions. And then I can even, some parents are like, I can even ask ChatGPT, hey, this is what I do for work. How can I connect this to my work? And all of a sudden parents are like, wait a moment. Like there's a way in which this can help me actually be more present with my kid,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
In the conferences that I've done, I share the things that I do with my kid. I have 2 years now of dream journals from my kid. He's 6 now, we've been doing that since he was 3. And almost every night he tells me what his dream was when he has a dream, and we do an AI image of it. And now I have 2 years of images of his dreams. And I shared that with another parent, and the next day, that parent sent me images of him and his daughter on the piano doing other things that they had created kind of that same through that same lens. And so I think the connection that you can have with your kids
Mm.
is really exciting some parents. And so that's what I would offer is like lean into that, lean into the joy, lean into the creativity, lean into the wonder. None of us know what this is. And so let's all just figure this out together.
I have a really funny anecdote about this. So I like obviously lit up when you were starting to say like ask AI about homework because I have a friend, hi Dr. Joe. She is a like preeminent women's health psychiatrist at Brown University. She's super,
Hmm.
super brilliant. And she has 3 boys, one of whom I think is, yeah, he's 13. The oldest is 13. And she doesn't know how to do his math homework. And so she used ChatGPT one day and she immediately came to me and she's like, is that cheating? And I was like, well, hold on. No, it's actually not cheating because she didn't, first of all, she didn't use the numbers that were provided in the question that he was given. She used
Hmm.
other numbers to try and understand the process and then
Yep.
re-explain it to him and like look at it with him. And I was
Yeah.
like, that is exactly how you should be using it. But like, how funny that this like world famous brilliant doctor is second guessing her use of AI with her own child at home and how empowering, like for
Yeah.
future for them as a family, you know?
Right, right. And how empowering for me right now to hear that someone like that is struggling. Like how good, right? Like that should make every parent feel like, okay, it's okay to be lost in this and it's okay to sort of just dabble and wonder. Great story. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, of course. Okay, so there's a term that you use that obviously I Googled and chatted and clotted and all the things, but I'm not sure I fully understand it at its like generalized use case, the way I see it in the media. What do we mean when we say agentic AI? What are we talking
Mm,
about? How is
mm,
that different from like using an LLM the way we're describing right now? Talk us through it,
hmm.
please.
Yeah, absolutely. Great. This is awesome. I love this conversation. Um, So agentics, I mean, the term itself has existed probably for a couple of years at this point. It probably existed before, but in this specific case around AI, probably a year or two old. But the way in which agentic AI is different from, for example, agents and AI, because that we can think agentic means, oh, agents. Yes, but that's not the whole story. So when you think of an LLM, you think ChatGPT, okay, I need something done, right? Okay, I need an email done or I need a brainstorm, whatever, right? So I have an input, I go to the LLM gives me an output. And then that's the conversation. Or I do it with other people, whatever it is. But the LLM sort of is the engine, right? But that engine is me input, me output. An agentic system, and I'll give you the most basic version of one, is like an email agentic system, right? Which is um, with an email agentic system, you have a trigger, which is say it could be you or it could be a clock, right? Where it's like every 2 hours, check my email, right? Boom, that trigger hits. Now that begins a process where a bot goes in and goes into your inbox. An LLM is actually going to read all your emails and then make a decision about whether or not which emails are pertinent, which emails are not pertinent, which emails are good, which emails are bad. You can even have your agent write an email, draft emails, whatever, and then it's going to send you, say, a notification, say, "Hey, in the last hour, you got two emails. One was useful and one was spam, and I've drafted a response for you." And you can just click "Good response, send it, done." Right? So you have an agent in there, which is your thing that's reading your emails, but the entire system is what we would call agentic. And what the difference between an agentic system is that we're no longer talking about human in the loop. We're actually talking about human creating the loop and then observing the loop and then optimizing the loop. And so AI is actually end to end doing everything, but you have to craft it in a way that you know it's going to work, you know it's not going to cause a bunch of problems, and you got to watch it at least for a good long while. And ideally, in the agentic system, you actually have another agent in there that watches and collects data and sends you information about when it's working and when it's not. And so when we talk about agentic AI, we're really talking about infrastructure. AI is infrastructure rather than AI as tool. And that to me is the easiest way to distinguish is when you think of AI as ambient infrastructure and we are the tools versus we are the infrastructure and AI is the tool. When we switch that, then we start thinking agentically. I don't know if that makes sense or not.
It does. And I like immediately know that example you gave was really clarifying for me specifically. And I can think about the multiple other kind of systems and structures that are already existing. What about for schools? Are schools in
Mhm.
a place where they're ready to talk about this type of agentic system, or are they? Where are we? I mean, this is not a
Yeah.
conversation I'm having on the regular, but you definitely are. So
Yeah, yeah, for sure, for sure. I'm actually having another conversation about this tomorrow, which is great. But I think it's complicated because agentic AI is really systems like humans building systems. And when you get to the more sophisticated part of agentic AI, it's systems building systems. It's AI systems that you have designed to be able to help you build systems. And those systems don't necessarily need to be permanent. They can be quick, they can be ephemeral, they can last for just one interaction because that's what you needed for that moment. And your agentic team kind of figured that out and did that. And so in my mind, one of the like what I work on is what I call this agentic education framework, which I've developed now, and it's part of the super leaders course that I started with superintendents. But what it is it's actually what I'm doing is I'm actually taking the frame of agentic AI, the technical frame of it, and mapping it to actual human organizational functions. And so rather than sort of boxing in agentic AI as a technical software tool, I'm wondering what agentic human organization looks like. So what's happening, it's kind of weird and really cool, is I'm finding myself learning human stuff from observing AI, which is really interesting, right? Because AI and like for example, swarm intelligence, right? That's part of agentics is like you create
Hmm.
a swarm of agents and each agent does different things. They all come together. But what makes a swarm work is that in the swarm of say 8 agents, one of them is researching blah de blah, one of them is building out a website, one of them is finding out I don't know, colors for your web, I don't know, whatever. You would have say 8 agents. But what makes them all work together is that everything they're doing, they're dumping into a common memory. So every agent knows what every other agent is doing. And they're constantly checking that memory to see what other agents are doing so that they can, so that each agent can be doing their work better. And I'm like, why don't we do that as humans? Like, why is it that we as humans in an organizational setting, especially in a school setting, where why is it that we don't have a common repository of all of our stuff that now because we have AI, it's no longer difficult for us to locate information that we need or be able to analyze information. We can have all of it there and AI can help us figure that out. And so that's where I'm really leaning into is less about agentic AI as sort of a thing to learn, but rather agentic AI as a model for how we can just be better at school administration. Really, that's it.
More effective, more efficient, better outcomes, all the things.
Yeah,
I,
all the
I can't even
things.
imagine if these tools existed when I was still in leadership in schools. I like truly, well, I age myself, but it's been a decade since I've been in a
Hmm.
school setting
Hmm.
directly. And it would be a very different ballgame to have
It would be so weird,
access.
right? It would be
Okay, so
so weird.
you touched on this super leaders cohort, and I know some of the
Yes.
folks in your super leaders cohort, and let me say, they are super. What do you do in
Yes.
there? Like, what is the goal of this super leaders
Yeah.
cohort? Are they, and also like for the people that aren't familiar with the folks in it, are you talking to one side of the ecosystem or another, or are you like really spreading the range of all the types of people getting involved?
Yeah. So we had our first actual call meeting yesterday, last night, and it was brilliant. I think Uh, what I'm trying to do in the Super Leaders cohort, and for those of you listening or watching, like superleaders.io, if you want to learn more there, but what I'm really trying to do is this idea of agentic leadership, which is not, again, not about AI necessarily. It's about learning from agentic systems, how we can make human systems a little bit better. And so what I'm doing is I have these 6 incredible leaders. Like I have former superintendents, I have education leaders, I have healthcare CEOs, I have healthcare HR VPs, I have um, you know Brian, who I don't know what you like, an everything guy, right? Like
We see you, Brian. We see you.
yeah, like the Swiss Army knife, right? But like, but these are folks who are really like kind of top of their game type folks, right? But in this new space, they are also in this place of, wait, hold on, like I can do something different, right? There are a lot of leaders who don't want to hear that they have to do something. They figured it out, right? They are experts and they don't need to hear anything else. But the folks I have in this cohort, I've chosen explicitly because they are like obsessed with growth. They're obsessed with like kind of reflecting on themselves and obsessed with learning new things. And so we're trying to figure out how some of them who work with superintendents, how can you bring this to a superintendent's office and think, okay, how can we think agentically as a district or as a county or even as a state? Um, yeah, and it's a mix, and my hope is that it continues to be a mix that we mix. I think there's a special magic that happens when you bring in educational leaders and corporate leaders, and when you put those two things together, you get and you get like the best of both worlds, and you get each of them sort of questioning one another, and both of them leaving with like, okay, am I caring about the right things? Am I pushing on the right things? And that kind of humility, that kind of learning, that kind of stance. I hope that that's what we get in the super leaders cohort.
I'm excited to see how that shapes because I imagine too that you'll discover use cases and ideas that you weren't even anticipating right now,
Yep.
which is the beauty of bringing really brilliant people together in the same room.
Yep. Yep.
You
And
know,
that's the hope. My hope is like I'm not leading all the conversations. I know that I'm going to be learning more from them than them from me. So that's what we're going for.
best spaces to be in,
Yep.
the best.
Yes.
You know, despite the fact that this is all moving really quickly, in some of your keynotes, you've spoken about slowing the moment down rather than
Mhm.
rushing for answers.
Yep.
What does that mean to you?
I mean, yeah, what does that mean? Especially when you look out the window or you look at your phone and it feels like every day is like a year, you know? It's,
Ain't
but I
that the
think
truth?
I think slowing down for me, it is, I mean, there's an incredible thinker, um, uh, Bio Akamulafe, who talks about, he has a book called Times Are Urgent, Let's All Slow Down.
Mm.
And and I think that's the title of it. My apologies to Bio if I said it wrong. But it is I think this moment requires us that like speed is easy now. Deliberation is difficult. Um, Quiet is difficult. We've been sort of submerged in this hyper competitive global capitalist ecosystem for so long. We don't know anything else other than rushing for the quickest way to get advantage.
Mm.
And that has caused our the so many people here to are like losing their minds trying to keep up with this and trying to figure out what's next, how do I prepare for the future. Slow down, folks. Slow down. Like we do not know what the future is. And this is what I call being present ready. And I talk about this in my keynotes, I talk about this in my sessions, but we talk so much about being future ready and we don't know what the future is. And so I think saying that we need to be future ready is actually abdicating responsibility to somebody else about the future. It's like I'm being ready for someone else's future,
Ooh, I love
right?
that. No, say it again. Say
Yeah.
it again. Say it again.
Yeah. Like I think that when you say, I need to be future ready, we need to be future ready, you're abdicating responsibility for the future to somebody
Mm.
else,
Mm.
right? Like you are saying, it is someone else's future. I need to prep for it.
Ooh.
No, 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 this is our future. Like we need to be present ready. What is today? What is happening right now? It doesn't mean you need to understand AI inside out. That absolutely not. But you do need to understand yourself. And you do need to understand your community. You need to understand your family. You need to understand the people around you. And if you can understand that, then you can understand what is happening for you and for the people you love and the people that love you. And if we can live there, then I think we have a whole lot to look forward to in the future. But if we sit here and just talk about this kind of defensive posture of being future ready, then the people who have created the current digital world that we live in right now, they're going to continue to build out with AI the next version of this kind of techno feudalist world that we live in right now. And if we want that, and if we love that, fine. I don't know a lot of people that love it outside of the people
Yeah.
who, the shareholders of the big companies. I don't know who else loves it. And so I think we have a chance. And so that's what I would ask. That's what I mean, is slow down. Let's be present ready and let's be really deliberate about what it means for us and our families in this crazy transition.
Do you think that we, the collective, have agency to address the current bias in our systems? Right? Like, I have a big concern about the speed at which things are moving, in part because the foundation of our LLMs that we're all basically building off of right now are foundations that are like very biased toward white, upper middle class, text created content being fed in.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
how much control do you see us having on changing that for the future?
I don't know how much control we have on the LLM side. I think we have 100% agency and control on what we do with it.
Mm.
And it's sort of the difference between stopping the bully versus um, being so resilient that bullies don't bother you, right? And I think the LLMs, we're talking about ingesting only written and digitized work, right? 99% of who we are as humans, I don't know if 99%, actually, I did a Google Deep Research thing and I can't remember what the numbers were, but the vast majority of who we are is not recorded, is not written down, is not in digital form, and therefore is not in LLMs, right? The smile that we share when we see each other, when the call starts, that's not caught on an LLM. And so
Mm,
most of who we are as people, as organic, emotional, face, body, embodied humans, none of that is in LLMs. And so what we're going to have with LLMs is always going to be some kind of fractional version of who we are, right?
mm,
And it's always going to kind of bend toward the stories that are already documented, right? The stories that are already written down, but also those that are also then digitized, because there are plenty of things written down that haven't been digitized, and those aren't going to make it into the LLMs, right? And so in that sense, I think for me, rather than try to fix it on the LLM side, I'm more stoked about how much we reveal about ourselves, how much we learn about what we have digitized, what we have valued, what we have, kind of determined to be worth writing down, versus, well, what don't we have here in the LLMs, right? I did a provocation in one of my sessions a couple of months ago because there was a big conversation around LLMs and sorry, I don't know if you can hear the road paving outside happening, but there's
not
road
any
paving.
louder than the alarm that went off a few minutes ago for a
Okay, so we're
second
good.
time.
We're good. We're good. Um, but I think right now it's like if we can figure out a way to sort of I'll tell you this provocation. I'll finish that thought. This provocation I did where we were talking deeply about how uh, LLMs can write and therefore we can't think anymore because they can write for us. And so I did a little provocation where I said Moana 2 had just come out, and I was like, ancient indigenous Polynesian cultures didn't have a written language. They never wrote a single word down. So there was no paragraph, there was no essays, there was no written thought. So does that mean that these people were not critical thinkers, were not imaginative, were not creative?
Mm,
Um, and of course, the answer is no. We know that. Trick question. But I think what that reveals is that these LLMs are never going to be able to capture the ancient wisdom of Polynesian seafarers, right? That's just, it's never going to be there because they didn't write anything down.
mm.
But we know of it, and how we memorialize that, that's on us now before AI runs away from us. How we memorialize that and how we maintain that, and how, hopefully, this is my hope, how we remember the centrality of oral storytelling. It doesn't need to be accurate oral storytelling. It just needs to be oral storytelling. The importance of oral storytelling, not written storytelling. It's oral storytelling.
Yeah.
When we remember that, I think we can put LLMs back in the place that they, I think, maybe should be, which is just a fractional version of who we are, not some reflection of anything bigger.
That's heartening.
Cheers. Thank you. Thank you. It's hard to do that in these days sometimes.
Right? Like, I know Rebecca Boltzma, and we talked recently on the podcast, and she was like, it's just so up and down. Like, I'm so positive, and then I'm no negative, and then I'm positive, and then I'm negative. And like, I feel that
Mhm.
way about everything right now, but,
Yep.
this is no different. This is no different.
Yep. This is no different. Yep.
Kunal, we could go on for days, and I would love to go on for days, and I look forward because we're going to see each other in person very soon,
Yep.
AI aside.
Hmm.
And I'm wondering, though, what you would close off with as what advice you would give parents who are eager to be more involved in creating a better future with
Yeah.
AI. What
Yeah.
advice you'd give them?
Yeah. So first, I'll give you two concrete things to do at home. One, make images of either dreams or favorite moments of the day or something that connects you to. Um, I one of the biggest connectors that sort of started my journey with this connection with my son was when I was trying to find images of Calcutta in the 90s, because that's where I grew up when I was a kid, and I could not find any online.
Wow.
And so then I asked this was the first Dolly. I asked Dolly, oh, do this. And the image that came out shook me. I felt like I was transported back
Mm.
to being 11 years old on a train in Calcutta. And then that turned into a whole story that my son and I made about being in Calcutta and going there together and all of that. And so that little image of connection of my past to him and him being able to visually see it in a medium that he understands, not some complicated text or whatever like that, but he can actually understand what I'm saying. That is one piece of connection. So I'd say figure out what that is. It can be imagery. Oh my God, it's loud out there. I'm so sorry. It could be imagery. It can be whatever. But the second piece of advice I would say is storytelling. My son and I do this thing where, you know how hard it is to be like, well, how was your day? Fine. What did you do? Nothing. How was nothing? Fine. And so instead of me, running into that wall constantly, we do this thing where I just say what I did during the day. So I just do a narrative, like I was on a
Mm-hmm.
call with Haley and I did this and I did that. And these are the things I did today. And then he goes in and he records, what did he do today? I played with this person. I did this, I did that. And then I asked the LLM, read the two stories and figure out how we both made a positive impact in the world today.
Ooh.
Even though we lived separate lives, how did we both make positive impacts in the world today? And so there, my son and I, we can read that now and we can be connected. We can be like, okay, even though you were at school and I was at work, we both did this in common together. We were connected in this way. And then I add another layer where I say, okay, now whatever it is that we did good today, locate that in some form of ancient indigenous wisdom. It doesn't matter locality. I just want some ancient wisdom because I want to show him that we're not just connected with one another. We're actually connected with our ancient humanity too. Every single day, everything we do, we're connected with our ancient humanity. And that's an example. That's because this is what I'm interested in. That's an example of how we can connect with our kids with AI. And the more that our kids see us doing that, this is my conviction. The more that our kids see us doing that, the more they're not going to even understand why people would use AI for anything unsavory, anything manipulative, anything bad. That's my hope. I don't know. That's my hope. And so that's what I would lean on for parents. I'm like, find joyful ways, connective ways, uplifting ways to connect with your kid around AI, with AI, around AI, however you want to do it. Because our kids are really going to be the determiners of what this thing looks like long term. And so let's get them seeing this in a beautiful, positive, uplifting, humanized way. So that would be my advice.
That is beautiful, positive, uplifting, and humanized. Kunal, you're such a light. I am so glad that we were connected just over a year ago, but also that I get to follow this work you're doing and the trajectory that has been really opening a lot of people's eyes into how to view this and how to frame this and how to absorb this differently than just thinking about asking ChatGPT a question. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast and sharing some of your wisdom.
It is always a pleasure. Always a pleasure. I love talking with you, Haley.
And thank you to everybody for tuning in today. Thanks for listening to the Learning Can't Wait podcast. If you like what you heard, please rate, review, and share this episode. Be the first to know when we have a new episode by subscribing wherever you listen to podcasts. If you'd like to be a guest on the show or have a suggestion for an episode, email us at podcast@fullmindlearning.com.